Hello, everybody, and welcome once again to the UGA Sports Call-In Show. I'm your host, Paul Maharry, joined again by Ben Choppy Bachmann, a UGA Sports regular and now member of the UGA Sports team. Guys, we've got a ton of stuff to talk about this week. We're going to dive deep into UGA's first scrimmage. Also, we had the opportunity to hear from Coach Kirby Smart, Coach Todd Monken, and Coach Dan Lanning this week. We're going to kind of touch on everything that they've talked about and try to put the pieces together for you on what we're hearing, where the depth chart lies, and things of that nature. Also, one thing that Ben and I wanted to talk about moving on into the season is UGA versus Clemson, kind of a position breakdown, O-line versus D-line. Which group do we like more? Quarterback versus quarterback, running back versus running back type thing. And we're going to break that down for you live here tonight. Guys, as always, we've got Skype back up and running, from what I understand. I did a test run earlier today. We had a little hiccup, it seems, last week. For whatever reason, Skype updated. But we've talked to the folks at Skype. They promised it won't happen again, and we seem to have fixed the problem. So we'd love to hear from you. 706-363-3773. The line is open. Ben, another Sunday night right alongside of you here.
Yeah.
What was your first thoughts of the closed scrimmage that we weren't allowed to attend or see, but we did have, obviously some folks told us, some sources told us what was going on. We heard from Coach Kirby Smart, who seemed, really docile in the post game, if you will, scrimmage press conference. And, he had some great things to say about the team. What were your overall impressions of that?
Well, one thing was Kirby was really calm in his press conference, by the way.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say, which he seemed to harp on a lot, and this is something that I'll say before I really get deep into the scrimmage, is defensive backs. That's one of the biggest worries this offseason. It's kind of gone down. It seems like everything shifted to the offensive line, which I've been saying for some time. I think defensive backs, Kamari Laster, Kirby even said, that's the surprise of the summer so far. That's a pretty bold statement. And how much Keely Ringo and Tyke Smith and guys like Darian Kendrick, all the reports on him, even though he didn't play yesterday. The secondary, has been looking very good. And I kind of have been under the mantra that Kirby's a DB guy at heart. So is Muschamp. And Coach Adai coached arguably the best secondary in college football last year by the numbers. And he's now your DB coach. So I think this DB room over time is going to develop into a top 3 or 4 unit in college football at that position. But when it comes to the scrimmage, I will say a couple things. One, no Jermaine Burton, no Kearis Jackson. We all know now, no Arik Gilbert, and no Dominic Blaylock performing in the scrimmage. So also, as we reported on, UGASports.com, they kept it very vanilla. They didn't really open up the playbook a ton. And one, they were using second and third team guys running with the ones at pass catcher. Now, Jermaine Burton and Kearis Jackson, as Kirby confirmed, probably going to be back for the next scrimmage. So they'll be good to go. Gilbert could be back, could not. We don't know. And Dominic Blaylock will be he'll be cleared definitely by the earlier portion of the season, but probably not him yet. But he'll be back at some point, obviously earlier on in the season we'd expect. But I'm not going to say for sure when he comes back. So that's one thing. But the defense dominated the day. The D-line looked really good. Apparently the O-line's better in protection, but it was a bit sloppy. The defense definitely won, and it definitely was more centered around the defense and definitely catered more towards them this scrimmage. But overall, let's be real here. Either the offense or the defense is going to win, and one of Georgia's side is going to win and one's going to lose in one of these scrimmages and look better than the other for the most part. But overall, defense looked really good, and that's really the big gist of it.
One thing that I heard from the press conference and I thought was kind of funny was he talked about Warren Erickson, the difference between amphibious and ambidextrous. Obviously, he knew which one was which, but he was just kind of, he was making jokes with the reporters, doing things like that. Something that we haven't seen from Kirby in a while. So, again, laid back in the press conference, which he mentioned tackling. He says that tackling is one of the things that he always looks for, especially in those first scrimmages, that he doesn't think is up to his standards. And he thought tackling was really there, considering this is one of the first times they've gone live hitting each other. And I think it might have been the first time, actually. And he said that, look, the tackling looked really good. And all the way up to my standards, but it was close. So that's something to watch moving forward. One thing that I did find, though, going back to the ambidextrous thing, was Warren Erickson's snapping hand is obviously hurt, and so he's going to try He's going to try to snap with his other hand. And when he tries to snap with his other hand, is that going to work? If it doesn't work, Ben, then what are they going to do at center? Because they tried out Sawyer, they've tried out Van Pran, and if you have to move Sawyer to center, he mentioned Erickson, and I really do think that Erickson's going to be back for the first game. Now, is he going to be able to snap? If he doesn't, Kirby did mention, he did hint at, he will be playing at some capacity, whether it's at guard, he'll be at one of the guard positions. But where do you go at center if Erickson isn't available? Because we've heard from Clemson now that snapping was an issue for their scrimmage, and they're trying 3 different guys out at center. They fumbled the snap, I think, 3 times in the red zone with DJ and one of the centers. They don't have a true center yet. Georgia does, but it really kind of goes back to what we've been harping on this whole offseason, is that Georgia needed to find its offensive line in the summertime in these practices right now. And with Erickson's injury, it seems like that unit is not as cohesive as I guess you would hope for at this point.
Yeah, what I'm thinking is with the center, I think it's going to be Sawyer, because I don't think Erickson, unless he really is able to snap, which snapping was actually kind of a problem last year, even with Trey Hill at times for Georgia. That Tennessee game, everyone remembers the first play of that game. I look and say it's going to be Von Pran or Sawyer is going to be the center, assuming.
But if you move Sawyer to the center position, then you're throwing off the whole offensive line.
Would be one of the young guys,
right?
Yeah, I think Jones or Mims, or they might have to go with Xavier Truss. I think it's going to be Mims or Jones at left tackle then, and then you would is what I get the feel of, because I think Jones is surging the most among the young linemen as of late in terms of his ability. I think Tate at this point, Tate Ratledge is going to start at right guard, especially if Erickson's down. I think that's a foregone conclusion, because then Sawyer can't be at guard. He has to be at center or left tackle. So at that point, Tate's a locked in start, in my opinion, assuming Erickson's out. So I think it's really between Von Pran and Sawyer. And if you put Sawyer in there, you're going to have a young gun with his first time ever playing at left tackle versus Clemson, or you're going to have Von Pran, a young guy at center, who I think Von Pran can snap it. It's not snapping's the issue. I think it's more of knowing the checks,
right?
Making some of the. That's the issue with Von Pran, a young guy, and getting up to the speed with the linemen at the college level. That's the thing with him. It's not necessarily snapping. I think it's the other things in terms of the mental thing, playing center, knowing the checks and making the calls and the reads, stuff like that. That's where I think a guy like Von Pran has to get better.
So if that happens, Kirby didn't dive into it, and he's not going to dive into it because obviously Clemson's going to go study some of those other guys. It's going to be interesting to see in this next week or so in terms of practice and what we're hearing, to see if Erickson's able to snap with his other hand. And do you really feel this is when Kirby said that, the one thing that came into my mind was, hold on. If you're really going to let this kid snap Erickson with his other hand, like it's just kind of, like against Clemson. Now, if you're starting against Charleston Southern, yeah, we can play that game. We can try to see if he can snap with his other hand. You're playing against Clemson. That was a big takeaway for me. And just overall, I think that the defense is a lot further along than we thought they would be. Obviously, Darian Kendrick was not there. He had to attend a funeral of one of his good friends, but he's been with the team. He's been practicing at that cornerback position. Kirby sounded like he was, extremely impressed, and he knows he has depth at the star and safety positions. A lot of guys that have a lot of playing time. You have Kendrick at one of the corner positions. They're still fighting it out for the other corner position with Kimber, Ringo, and Speed, but you have depth there. You go down to linebacker, which we're going to do in just a second. We're going to go position by position and break this down, but you go down to linebacker. They're fine there. Defensive line's fine. Wide receivers seem to have been an issue for Kirby, obviously because of all the injuries that you talked about, Ben, but I don't think that's going to be a big hindrance. Running back's not a big hindrance for UGA. Quarterback's not. But then you get to that offensive line, and again, it's really going to, these next 2 weeks leading up to the game, they're going to be doing a lot of, Matt Luke's going to have his work cut out for him because he's going to be having to do a lot of switching, left tackle to center with Sawyer. If Sawyer goes to center, who goes to left tackle, things of that nature. When does Amarius Mims come into play in all of this? There's a lot of things that still need to be played out in this offensive line, but you're going up against Clemson in the first game, Ben. That would be my biggest concern. You're going up against Clemson. You don't have time to wait.
Yeah, I just think with Georgia, it's the O-line. I think as long as the receivers are healthy, and we'll see, because it's not out of the question you see both Blaylock and Gilbert playing versus Clemson, especially Gilbert. I think, his is a deal that if he comes back and starts practicing again, he could definitely be ready by then. If he's practicing this week, he'll be playing versus Clemson.
Hey, Ben, we've got a call, actually. Ben, let me cut you off. We got a call. Sorry. Thanks for calling into the UGA Sports Call-In Show. Who do we have the pleasure of speaking with?
Zinger Dog.
Zinger Dog. What's going on, man? How's it going?
I'm doing all right. How are you doing, Paul?
Doing all right. Glad to hear you live in person here.
It's been a little bit since I've talked to Ben, so I figured if I'm going to talk to him now that he's big timing it on the board, I've got to go through the call-in show.
There you go. So guys, if you're watching and you're not a member of the site, Zinger Dog is, a legend over on UGASports.com. So we were glad that he's called in. Zinger, what's on your mind, man? What's on your mind?
Well, I was listening to y'all talk about the offensive line, and I do think he's going to do everything he can to put experience out there, period.
Right.
I mean, that's why he's having Erickson, snap with the other hand, just to try to see if he could put experience out there. I know Ben said Jones and Mims are a possibility at left tackle. I honestly think he starts Truss.
Yeah.
If he can't, he has to move Sawyer to center. Not that I don't believe what Ben is saying. Those guys will play, but I think to start the game, he's going to put, I think it'll be Truss, Schaefer, Sawyer, Ratledge, and Mack. Unless Erickson can play. If Erickson can play, I think that he starts obviously at center and Sawyer plays left tackle.
Zinger, how concerned are you as a Georgia fan with this offensive line? I know Ben and I were just talking about it. If you're starting against Charleston Southern, hey, sure, man, let's see if Erickson can snap with his other hand. You're starting off against Clemson. How concerned are you as you sit right now, less than a month away from the game?
That first game, the first game is going to be your offensive line just takes time. It's going to be, who can minimize their mistakes. That's who's going to win that first game. I mean, I've seen some teams play some god-awful first games, some offensive lines who, couldn't block anybody, and by, game 5 or 6 looked like, a totally different group. So I think this is, kind of what we're just going to have to hope that, these guys can find a way to gel together. At least they've had more practices this year with COVID not being quite a problem, So I think they're going to be fine. I really do. I really think they're going to be very good. They've got a lot of experience. I mean, Schaefer's seen a lot of snaps.
Yeah.
I mean, Max, I can't believe what McClendon turned into. I mean, nobody really thought he would be what he is. And he might be the best right tackle in the SEC.
I mean,
that's true.
McClendon's holding off Broderick Jones, who, by all accounts, from me going to watch him, I thought he would step in day one at Georgia and assume one of the tackle positions. He's holding off Broderick Jones right now.
Freshman All-American in the SEC.
Yeah.
That guy was the 7th ranked overall player in the country coming out.
Right.
And he's helped, which is, incredible. It just tells you how good that kid is and how you get the opportunity. I think a lot of Georgia players, when they get the opportunity, seem to find a way to step up. I go to a guy in the secondary who every time he plays seems to play well but can never get on the field is William Poole. Every time they've had to put him in, he's played well. And you don't even hear of him on the depth chart yet. Every time he plays well for whatever it is. And I think he's like the new hybrid. That's why Ben and I have had so many conversations about Lassiter last year. I just loved him because he's that hybrid guy now that you need, the guy that can hit you and a guy that can cover. I think we're done with 225-pound safeties that come down in the box and wipe you out. I think you got guys that can cover and hit. And that's what it's going to be from this point forward until they can figure out how to stop the passing game,
Ben, it's your boy Zinger. What questions do you have for him?
Well,
Or Zinger, what questions do you have for Ben? Let's that street goes both ways on the call-in show here.
I want from Ben. Come on, Ben, hit me with something. What do you?
Yeah, I was gonna say, what's your pulse on the receivers? It seems that that's one thing everyone talks about like every offseason is. Are you going to get those in that pass game? Like, what's the deal with the injuries there? You can go ahead.
Yes, unproven talent is what it is. I mean, will they come in and it's just like anything. I mean, these guys are heart rates are going to be different when they're playing in that first game. I mean, everything is going to be totally different, and not a ton of these guys have seen a huge game other than the guys that were around for the Bama game last year. I mean, yeah, I know Cincinnati was somewhat of a big game, obviously Florida, but it's a totally different type thing, and these guys have to, see if they can do it when the lights are on. I mean, you would think there's lots of weapons out there. Bowers is proven to be, it seems like
that's a touchy subject on here. I'm not on the train yet.
You're going to get on the Bowers train, Paul.
I'm not on the train yet. I'm not on the train yet, Zinger. I got to see it.
Oh, come on.
I do have to see it. You're right about that. There's no doubt about it. That I just keep hearing. Look, the guys that I hear about, and you find this kind of odd, and Ben and I have talked about this too. I was shocked. I talked to a couple of players, and they talked about two guys. They talked about Chaz, and they talked about Bowers. Those were the two guys that they were talking about, which generally that's a good sign, going forward, as far as, when you hear that in the offseason, you hear it from players.
Right.
That's a thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it's freshman too.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think it'll take him maybe a second. I don't know if I'd count on him first game, but I think early on they're going to go with experience. They're going to throw the ball a lot to Burton. I think they're going to throw it a lot to Kyrus Jackson. I think they're going to throw it to Washington. And as you know, in the scrimmage, apparently they threw it a lot to Fitzpatrick. So that guy, they like experience early on. Fitzpatrick's going to play a lot. Washington's going to play a lot. And I think they're going to use the backside of the backfield. Those guys have seen a lot of games. People tend to write off Zeus, and Zeus isn't the receiver out of the backfield.
Right there, Paul.
But they've been around and they've played a lot of snaps. That's something they're going to count on in game one. You can just bank on that.
Go ahead, Ben.
I know one thing I was going to say, and he brought up Washington. I've said this in the Clemson game. I think the key to Clemson is there's going to be mismatches, and when we break down those positions, I'm going to explain it because me and Paul are going to break down who we think is better at each position, Georgia and Clemson. Is Clemson's weak, and even though they're experienced at linebacker, Skolowski and their other linebacker I saw, they're slow. They're not guys that you want out there in coverage, but they're going to have to be if they're going to be three down players that have that experience. That's where Washington's going to come in, and the tight ends and Bowers. When you have really good tight ends and you can run out those two tight end sets, that's the type of formation, that's the type of passing game that's going to be a mismatch for a team like Clemson because they're weak at linebacker and they're weakest at safety. They're terrible at safety. That's probably their weakest point. That's why Arian Smith to me is the X factor of that game. Is Arian Smith because he's the guy to speed to take the top off defense. You have a guy like that against two weak safeties. I mean, those are going to be the players that are going to decide the game, in my opinion. As long as if the O-line holds up, I think Georgia will win the game. I'm not saying by a big or small margin. I'm not going to go make a score prediction. But if their O-line obviously plays well, I think whoever has the better O-line play is going to win. But I think for Georgia in the pass game, Washington, Arian Smith, those are the two guys because of the mismatches at linebacker and safety of Clemson, their weak points, especially in their pass game. Those are going to be the guys that are going to have to thrive.
I agree. 100% agree.
Hey, Zinger.
I can't.
Oh, go ahead.
Agree. Yeah, I think you're dead on the money. Those are the guys that are going to have to do it. Those are the guys that are going to have to make the plays, and we just have to hope we don't make a lot of mistakes early. That's always what things. Those first games are just all about who makes the worst mistake. And Clemson has been in a lot of big games and hasn't made a lot of big mistakes. So I'm hoping that we can maybe decide that we're going to do that. This is a big game. People kind of think we're going to be okay if we don't win this game, and I know we'll have an opportunity. We went out and we play Bama, but if we don't beat Clemson, it's the recruiting. By the time December rolls around, man, it could be done. You know what I mean? So this is a huge game for recruiting, I think. You know, I mean, I really do believe that it's a game that, even though it's not a must-win for, you know, having our goals out in front of us, I think it could literally put us, you know, 4 or 5 spots back in recruiting because of that early signing if we don't win that game. That's just my opinion. Even if we beat Bama in December, it may be too late. You know what I mean?
Hey, Zinger, one more question before go ahead, Ben. Go ahead. I got one more question for Zinger before we move on.
If you're going to go by recency bias, an SEC title win and a win versus Bama that close to signing day, I think that would stick out. Because then at that point, Bama could be on the ropes to making the playoffs. You win the SEC and beat Bama just a couple days before kids sign. That to me, I think that one would stick out more. But I think if you beat Clemson, it's going to give you a bunch of momentum. I think winning both would knock. I think it would give you a bunch of guys would start to trend Georgia's way. But I think at least one of those wins secures you the playoff and will secure you a really good class. I don't think that if you win at least one of them, I don't think you're going to be knocked back 4 spots. And also in my breakdown, like I said, not that many schools have that many high-end targets still left on the board for them that they're realistic for right now, that it's going to be hard. Like Florida's in the 30s in recruiting right now, which maybe we'll touch up on them one day. But I think it's going to be hard for a lot of schools to jump Georgia in the rankings, and I think just one win will be good enough. But Georgia realistically should want both wins because if they beat Clemson week 1, they should an SEC title game.
I got a question for Paul.
Yeah, Zinger, what's going on?
I'd like to know if you believe if we beat Clemson game 1 and we end up running the table and we play Alabama in the championship game, they're likely to do the very same thing. Is that going to be a case where the SEC championship game doesn't matter at all? I mean, why would you play it? What would be going on? I really do believe there's a chance that game could only mean seeding, and that would be it, and that we don't meet again first round.
Yes, so you kind of answered the question for me. It would really be about seedings, and I think that you want the seeding, you know, and we've seen in the past they're not going to put the SEC. So like if Georgia and Alabama, let's say they run the table, they get to the SEC championship game, Alabama wins or Georgia wins, it doesn't matter, right? They're not going to put that other team fourth and Georgia or Alabama won. You're not going to play each other again. So you get the opportunity to then get that third place or fourth place team, whatever you want to call it. You get to have that team as opposed to, you know, the third best team or the second best team, which would be, you know, Oklahoma or something like that. You get the better of the worst of the 2 leftover teams. So yeah, in my opinion, yeah, you play that game 100%. You want that SEC championship game by far, bar none, and it helps with seeding. And I think this is, you know, until they change the playoffs, this is kind of what you're looking into. And yes, you're going to play that game till you can't play it anymore.
I mean, I know.
Wait, can I say one quick thing, Paul?
Yeah, what you got?
The only way it's not seeding, Zinger, is if there's an unbeaten Pac-12 and an unbeaten Big 12 and Big 10. I think the Big 12, Oklahoma's lost a game every year, and the Pac-12, they've lost at least like 2 games every year. They're top champion. So by history, I think, yeah, but here's the thing. Ohio State plays Oregon, and I think Oregon's going to win the Pac-12. I think they're going to be the clear favorites, unless USC, which I don't think they have a chance to go undefeated or anything like that. The Pac-12 is likely, or even if Oregon does run the table, Ohio State's going to have a loss to Oregon, which isn't going to look as strong, to the point where, yeah, there's not going to be all those undefeated champions, and Georgia would get the nod over Clemson because they have the head-to-head. I understand, even if Georgia lost to Bama, some people would say, well, the conference championship. Well, Georgia beat Clemson, and even earlier in the year when they were putting stuff together, and they should be better now. So I think, yeah, as well, because of the Ohio State-Oregon game, yeah, I think it's going to be about seeding.
Hey,
Amen.
Hey, Zinger, man, love having you on. We've talked to you for the last 10 or so, 15 minutes. Love having you on. Would love if you'd call again and we could touch base with you that Saturday night after Georgia plays Clemson, and hopefully you're in a happy mood.
Hey, yeah, amen to that. Hey, I appreciate you having me on, and you guys have a great night, okay?
All right, thanks, man.
You too, Zinger.
All right, thanks. All right, bye-bye.
That is Zinger Dog, folks. If you're a
Good
member
seeing
of, yeah, man, that was great. If you're a member of UGASports.com, you know Zinger Dog. He always posts some great content. While he was talking, though, we had a ton of comments come in over on YouTube. And if you're watching, go ahead and shout at us where you're watching from, guys. We do it every show. We want to hear where you're watching from. And you don't have to call in, guys. 706-363-3773 if you'd like to. If not, put your questions in the comments, and we'll get to them. So let's catch up on these comments over here, Ben. Let's see. A lot of people talking about Gilbert, obviously, and they want to kind of touch on that, and we can touch on that. Let's see here. WS says he was there at the scrimmage. People forget that JT going against possibly the best D in the nation. They haven't opened up the playbook yet, and the first team D knows what the Georgia offensive routes are. Have to say Beck looks good. He said Brock looks like the number 3 right now. He needs to really absorb the speed coming at him. This isn't high school. You know, that I think we figured that was going to be the case for Vandegrift, but he's got time to wait, you know. Eric M says, I hope we get Blaylock back soon. He was very good as a true freshman. Can't wait to see more of that awesome slot production. WS said running backs look great in the scrimmage. And let's see, Tyrone Williams says Blaylock is good, just waiting on season to start. And this is what Tyrone Williams said, guys. So we'll see about that. Let's see here. I did see a question. Tristan West says, good evening, everybody. Hey, Tristan, how are you, man? Eric M says, is it more important for Sire to play left tackle or center? I wish we could just keep him at left tackle until someone steps up at left tackle, and let's move him to left guard. I hope we don't have to move him to center for Clemson. Ben, we touched on this at the beginning of the show. Is it more important for Salyer to play left tackle or center? Putting you on the spot, I'll answer it after you.
Typically, I would say left tackle, but I'm going to go center because of all the decisions that has to be made with the checks and everything. And I think, you know, Sawyer being able to help out like a Tate Ratledge at right guard when it comes to a guy like Breezy or whoever they think is the best interior guy playing, I think that would be the better scenario. Plus, I think Sawyer's more natural as an interior lineman. So when you bring up Sawyer, I'll go center.
Yeah, I was trying to find an argument in my head to go against you, Ben. But I agree. I think it's center against Clemson. If you had to pick one for Jamari, you would put him at center. You don't want that to happen. You want Erickson to be back. You want your line to be cohesive because as it stands right now, if Erickson's back, let's just run down the offensive line real quick. Salyer left tackle, Schaefer left guard, Salyer left tackle, Schaefer left guard, Erickson at center, Ratledge at right guard, and then McClendon at right tackle. It sounds like a pretty good offensive line, you know? And you can make changes as the season goes on. You're probably going to see Mims at some point. But like we just talked about with Zinger, you know, Warren McClendon is pretty entrenched in that right tackle spot. Like Ben said, freshman All-ACC. You know, you've got 5 stars waiting in the wings, but that's not to say that they're just going to see the field automatically and that McClendon's just going to magically give up his spot because he played really, really good last year. Let's see here. Eric M. says, I really don't want Truss playing left tackle versus Clemson, hoping Van Pran can step up and seize the center spot for the Clemson game. So there's a differing opinion, so to speak, right there.
Yeah.
On that. Let's see.
If Von Prom was ready, they would start him at center. If they felt like he knew the checks and everything, I think he has everything else down. It's just knowing that he hasn't had the experience and you're throwing him out week 1 to have to know everything and make all those calls as basically your first start versus Clemson. I think week 2, if Erickson, they still are unweary, I think Von Prom might start at center week 2.
I like Von Pron. I do. I've liked him since his days back at Warren Easton over in Louisiana. Let's go to the second topic, guys. We're going to dive into this, what you've all been waiting for, the UGA versus Clemson position breakdown, position battle, so to speak. And Ben, do you want to do this? I was thinking about this. So like quarterback, running back, and then wide receivers versus defensive backs. Is that how we want to do this after we get through quarterbacks and running backs? Or do you just want to go quarterback versus quarterback, running back versus running back? It's up to you.
I think I would rather do that because it gives us a full scale of by position.
Okay. Yep.
If you, I guess we can dabble on receivers versus DBs when we talk about who's better. I guess.
So I'm making a list here of O-line. So we're not gonna we'll put them against each other, but in the grand scheme of things,
the thing. Are we gonna go cornerback safety?
We're just gonna go defensive back.
Cornerback safety.
Let's just go defensive back.
Just DB. Are we gonna do receiver and tight end?
Receiver and tight end.
So, okay.
Yeah, we'll do that. All right, so let's start off with QB. Ben, I'll hand it to you first. Obviously, you've got JT Daniels, the redshirt junior, versus DJ. Not even going to try to pronounce his last name, folks. I'm going to get it right before the call-in show, for the Clemson game. DJ, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. DJ U.
Uungalale?
Yeah, you're close.
Yeah.
So where you at?
To me, I think it's a toss-up, but if you put a gun to my head, I think you might go DJ because I think he's a bit more talented. I think DJ has a bigger arm, is a little bit more mobile. I think the experience factor, I think you would have to go with JT. He has more years. He has more wins, actually, and more games last year. I know DJ's thing was that nobody really wants to touch on. Lost to Notre Dame, and then his other start, they almost lost to Boston College. They were down by, I think, 2 touchdowns. It's at least 2 touchdowns at some point in that Boston College game, for those who remember. And even though he put up good numbers and he did make some great plays, he did have, a little bit of struggles, and it wasn't the big margin wins like they had with Trevor outside the Ohio State game. But I just think DJ's a little bit more talented. I think you can make a very good argument for both, and I wouldn't trade either one for the other, but I would just go DJ, a little bit higher ceiling.
All right, well, I'm going to go for this game only. I'm going JT, and the reason being, like Ben said, experience. Yes, DJ has experience. He's played in big games. Obviously, the Notre Dame game last year for Clemson was huge. But something within me is just saying pick JT for this game. I think JT's going to have a killer season. I really do. I think a lot of people are sleeping on him. And a lot of people are doubting what he did last year because he didn't play the top upper echelon teams in the SEC when he did get his chance. But he put up big numbers and changed the offense. Let's not get it twisted. He changed the Georgia offense completely from almost like since Aaron Murray was at Georgia, slinging it around. Like, you haven't seen a passing attack like that in a long time. And if you remember, go back to when JT took over and he had those 300-yard passing games. You were calling all your friends like, whoa, this is different. This is crazy. Georgia's hopped on the bandwagon now of the spread offense. They're moving the ball downfield. They're not going 3 and out with 3 rush plays, left, right. And, it's 3rd and 3, and now they're punting. They're moving the ball substantially. They've got guys making 40-yard catches. JT's throwing the ball 50 yards in the air. Let's not forget about that. Yeah. And let's not, push it down because he wasn't playing against the greatest teams on earth there at the end of the year. He's playing against the top competition that was on the schedule, and he put up big numbers. So I'm going with JT there for quarterback. For running back, I think this one's pretty simple, Ben. UGA, right?
I would take UGA. Well, I'm trying to think Clemson. Well, some people are trying to hype up Will Shipley. I'm not going to pick a freshman over Zeus, James Cook, and I think James Cook and him kind of play a similar role. And Kendall Milton, I think Kendall Milton among all the backs on both teams in terms of talent and everything is the best, even though Zeus is the most reliable and the most experienced. And I think right there with him, I think it's clearly Georgia there.
And as we move on, wide receiver, tight end. Somebody asked if we talked about Gilbert yet. We'll kind of use this point to talk about it.
Yeah.
Right now, Gilbert's dealing with, some personal issues, and from all accounts that we've heard, still with the team, just trying to get those personal issues dealt with. And we'll kind of leave it at that. Kind of with the same thing, Scott Cochran. We talked about Cochran dealing with some personal issues. Dane Young put a really good column up over on UGASports.com, kind of talking about these mental health issues and personal issues and things of that nature. Go check that out, and we'll kind of move on from that. But wide receiver, tight end, Clemson's got some wide receivers, Ben. I mean, obviously Justin Ross coming back was huge. A Jew is really good. Frank Ladson's not bad. E.J. Williams is pretty good. Joseph Nada's not bad. Tight end, Brandon Galloway, the senior, he's not bad. Davis Allen, not bad. They've got some guys, but Georgia does too. Where are you leaning on this one?
Here's the thing, and this is one thing that nobody wants to bring up with Clemson. They don't have guys who stretch the field. Look at Bama receivers; they're all fast. Does any of Clemson's receivers you look at and say they're a burner? No. Do their tight ends match up with Georgia? I'm on the Bowers train, and yes, Darnell Washington is probably the best of the bunch, and the experience of Fitzpatrick. I'm taking Georgia's ends. Now with receiver, Justin Ross is coming off an injury that nobody's ever returned from, and he just got cleared a week ago.
Right.
Then we have Frank Ladson and Joe Nada, both guys who are bigger receivers who have had injury issues. Neither one has had the season Jermaine Burton had even. I mean, I think both of them are juniors. They didn't even have the season that Jermaine Burton had last year yet. So With that being said, they have the talent. And I actually think of the young guys, I might like E.J. Williams the best of them, actually, because when I watched him, he flashed a lot. They definitely have the talent, but they're a bunch of bigger receivers, and they're very injury-prone. And outside of Justin Ross, who has obviously that injury, we'll have to see. Even though we know he might be the most talented with George Pickens not playing. I'm going to go with Georgia because I think Georgia's more dynamic. I think they're deeper, and I think they're more dynamic with their skill sets. If Gilbert were to play, you have a mismatch like him that you can use at receiver or tight end, which I think it's still definitely possible he plays. If he practices this week, he'll play. Darnell Washington, the tight end's already said. I think the tight ends are better, more skilled. They're athletic. They're bigger. They have more production and talent. With the receivers, Arian Smith stretches the field. I talked about this earlier. Nobody has the speed of him. Jermaine Burton, nobody on Clemson has that speed, and nobody on Clemson actually, outside of Justin Ross, has his production and his route running ability. Then I look and say, Kearis Jackson. He had 400 yards through the first 4 games last year, and he's a really good return guy, really efficient in the slot. I'd take him in the slot, very, very good. Marcus Rosemy, if he's healthy, he adds a whole different dynamic to the game. That he's kind of similar to George Pickens in terms of how he'll play, and he's good. I just think Georgia's deeper. I think they're more because they got a lot of guys. They got some guys like Rosemy kind of meshes with more of a Clemson receiver. If Pickens would have played, he meshes with that. Where Georgia's got a variety of guys. They're deeper. They can play a variety of things. That's why I go Georgia.
I'm going to disagree with you right now, and the reason being, and I'm not doing it, and I'm doing it as of right now, Ben, and I'll tell you why. Almost every guy you mentioned, you ended it with injury. Is he playing for Georgia, right? Blaylock, Rosemy Jack Saint, Kearis, Burton.
No. Only Blaylock and Gilbert are injury. That's 2.
But Burton.
The other guys are playing.
But I know, but Burton and Jackson didn't play in the scrimmage. What I'm saying is they're more banged up right now than Clemson, is what I'm saying. And of course, Burton and Jackson, from all accounts, from what Kirby said, will definitely be fine by Clemson. What I'm saying right now, as of today, August 15th, I'm taking Clemson wide receiver tight ends, and it's close. It's really close. It's really, really close. But it's the injuries for me. Moving on. Offensive line, Ben. Offensive line. You want me to take this one first?
Yeah, you go first.
I'm going to take Georgia. This is also a close one, though, because Clemson has a couple guys on their offensive line that I like. They do. They brought back what's his name? Bockhorst. They brought him back. Will Putnam is serviceable at the guard position. Jordan McFadden. They've got guys there. I love Georgia's depth at O-line. Can they find the right 5? That's my thought. Tristan West comments over here, Ben. I think he's backing me up. Clemson receivers are deadly in one-on-one situations. We need Kendrick, Kimber, Speed, and Ringo to step up big time. I agree, Mr. West. That's why you're one of my favorite commenters. Thank you. But anyways, offensive line, I'm going UGA, Ben. What say you?
Okay, so with me, I'm going Georgia as well. I understand why you would say it's close. I think I would go firmly Georgia. I wouldn't say a big margin, but I definitely would go Georgia. First off, they're more talented. I think we would all agree with that. 1, even their starters last year who were experienced, they all struggled. They didn't have, like, we understand some of these guys that they had some good performances against Ohio State. They all didn't do well at all versus Ohio State. I know you can make that argument. Georgia had kind of a struggle game versus Mississippi State, but the last impression I saw is the weakness of Clemson's offense has been their O-line. They've never really had an elite O-line. And when I look at them, Sawyer to me is the best O-lineman of everybody. Georgia has him. McClendon was an SEC freshman All-American, and Schaefer's been experienced, and he's a Senior Bowl guy that they're looking at. So you look at those three, and then once you take those three out of the equation, Georgia's got, to me, minus Tristan Lee, who we know Clemson's not going to play. He hasn't ran with the first or second team for Clemson yet. So outside of him, nobody is as talented on Clemson's O-line as Cedric Von Prawn, Tate Ratledge, Broderick Jones, and Amarius Mims, and even Micah Morris for that matter.
True.
So I'm going to go with Georgia because they have the experience in developing O-line, Matt Lucas, the coach, and the talent, and also their experienced starters I take over Clemson. So I'm going to go Georgia.
Fair enough, and valid point there too. I like that. Defensive line. Now this is tricky, right? This is a little tricky because Georgia runs a 3-man front, Clemson runs a 4-man front. So you have 4 guys versus 3. But we're talking as an overall unit. You're not going to just see 3 guys for Georgia and 4 guys for Clemson. You're going to see, 8 on each side at least, probably, or 6 to 8, I'm sure. Defensive line, Ben, where are you going? This one's tough because Clemson has, Brisset. They've got Murphy. They've got some guys on that D line. But Georgia's got some boys too. What say you?
I think it's a toss-up here. I think most people are going to slightly take the lean to Clemson because of the talent. Here's my thing. I think Clemson's very top-heavy with 2 guys.
Yep.
They got Brzee and Murphy.
Right.
Now, you're probably not taking their other 2 starters. You're probably not putting Tyler Davis or whether it be Xavier Thomas or Justin Foster to start for Georgia compared to these guys.
No.
Now, Trayvon Walker, I'm high on. He's flashed. He just hasn't had a chance to be a full starter because of Malik Herring, but he's showed a lot, and I know how big of an offseason he's had. So he's the guy I'm high on. Wyatt, to me, is going to be at least a day 2 pick, and Jordan Davis, we know what he is. But the difference maker is I think when his career is done, the best D lineman on either team is going to be Jalen Carter. Then it's going to be Murphy and Brzee. I think when it's all said and done, it's going to be Carter. I'm going to give the slight edge to Georgia because I just like, as a complete unit where I think Clemson may be more dominant with 2 guys. I like their other guys. Trust me, they're really good too. But I'm just going to go Georgia. To me is just a little bit more complete. And, I mean, the depth on both sides is pretty equal. So I'll just give it by, like a little Miller thing. I'm going to go Georgia.
It's tough. It's tough. This one, so, as I was debating throughout the day, which positions would be the toughest for me to pick, D-line for me, I kept going back and forth. And there's a couple guys that, for me, make this more Georgia than Clemson. And it's all about depth. It's all about Jalen Carter. It's all about it comes down to, like you said, Jalen Carter. For me. Yeah. Because once you get past Brisset is special, man. Murphy is special. Like those guys last year were problems, Ben. Those 2 guys were problems.
But they choose Xavier Thomas.
They were true freshmen. Guys. They were true freshmen last year, Ben. They were problems.
Yeah, they were.
Xavier Thomas coming back for them only helps them. KJ Henry coming back for them only helps them. They've got guys, and these are names that Georgia fans are used to because Georgia was in the hunt for these guys when they were being recruited. But Jalen Carter to me kind of flips this the other way. And Devontae Wyatt. And I think Martin Arenado said it over here. He said oh, goodness. I kind of glanced at it. He says, I would say D-line is a tie, but I think Wyatt and Carter give UGA the edge. And here I go. Martin Arenado, if you're free on Sunday nights, just come take my spot because we pretty much said the same exact thing. I'm going.
You're just here to back him up anyway.
Right. I'm here.
I don't have the YouTube comment, so obviously he's cheating here with his backup, but it's what it is.
I'm going UGA, Ben. And this is the closest one because I think if you look at it from who can make the biggest impact, it's Brisset and Murphy. Who can do it as a collective whole? I think Georgia, and I think Jordan Davis is going to be really big in that in the middle right there. Moving on to
Yeah,
linebacker.
one thing
Go
I will
ahead.
say real quick. Wait, but before we go on, one thing I will say real quick. Henry and Xavier Thomas, especially, I don't think Xavier Thomas hardly played last year due to a variety of reasons. But both those guys haven't lived up to their billing.
No.
Like KJ Henry or Xavier Thomas. So that's the tricky thing. Even though they're talented, they have not lived up to it. The one thing I'll say about Murphy, and honestly, 4 down D linemen, we say the same thing with Jordan Davis. You can make the same argument because he's a tackle. But I think Myles Murphy only had 4 sacks last year. He started every game. I think he only had 4 sacks. That's one thing to take into account. They didn't get big sacks, but the pressures and everything like that, they had a ton of that. So some people are going to look at the stats, say Clemson, I think they're a little bit overrated. No, they're not. It's harder for 4 down linemen like that to get pressures.
Right. Going to linebackers. So as it stands right now, guys, those of you tallying at home, if you will, Ben has gone Clemson 1 time, and I've gone Clemson 1 time. We're through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 position groups, 2 more to go. Oh, we'll put specialist on here too, Ben. Why not? We'll throw the specialist on there. I didn't study him. It's going to be out of left field. I didn't study him, but we'll put him on there.
Georgia's kick return game.
But Ben's got Clemson at quarterback, and I've got Clemson at wide receiver, tight end. Rest of it right now, we're through defensive line, is going UGA's way. Tyrone Williams says Kirby is a defensive mastermind. Give them the edge. Okay, all right. And we could even put on here coaching. I don't know if you want to go down that road, but we can.
I don't know. That's complex. Even though I might just give it to Dabo because he has a title. You know?
Yeah. But anyways, linebackers, Ben. So right now for Clemson, and those of you watching at home, linebackers for Clemson, you've got Balin Spector, James Skalski, Trenton
Thompson,
a
million years.
And James Skalski and Braylon Spector are both graduate seniors this year, so they are back. You look behind those guys, they've got Levante Bentley, Jake Venables. Venables' name rings a bell. That's because his dad's the defensive coordinator. You've got behind them, not much more. They use another linebacker. Sometimes they run a 4-2-5, but they use another linebacker, Trent Simpson, 5-star sophomore this year. As opposed to Georgia at linebacker, you've obviously got Adam Anderson, Nakobe Dean, Quay Walker, and Nolan Smith. And Channing Tindall, MJ Sherman, and Robert Beal will be your big backups. Ben, linebackers, what do you have?
Well, obviously Georgia's got bigger numbers here, and I also like them more as a unit because I think Clemson, outside of safety, which we're going to get to that next, I think linebackers are a really weak point for their defense. Because
really?
James Skalski.
You think that?
For
you
Clemson.
think that's for Clemson. You think that's a weak point? Really?
For Clemson linebacker, outside of Trent Simpson, you're high on Spector and Skalski? You think they're going to be able to cover the tight ends?
No, Ben.
Well, I don't think it's a weak point for them, but I'm saying for the Georgia game, like they are not matched up well. I mean, if you're playing Virginia Tech, I like them, but if you're playing Georgia, they're going to have to cover the tight end. The thing about Georgia is, I've been saying this is all about matchups, and I think Georgia's tight ends, which is why if we would have talked about that, I would have gotten more into it. But with the tight ends, these linebackers aren't built to cover. They're going to have to cover these tight ends. They're not going to be able to. Here's the thing. Spector and Skalski aren't that athletic, but also I know Skolaski's like their version of Julian Rochester. He feels like he's been there forever. I feel like he was on their early – I feel like he's been there since Deshaun Watson's been there. And then they have Trent Simpson, who's really talented. Trent Simpson's a really good player.
Yeah, he is.
He's young. We'll see. And I'll be interested to see – you didn't touch up on him, but Barrett Carter, he's I know he's a freshman. But I don't know if he's going to play much at all in the
I doubt
game,
it.
But
I doubt it.
We'll see. Be a good player. I bet for them. One, because the edge rushers, I think if you can still hear me. I know it's glitching up on the screen for me a little.
All right. There you go.
Adam Anderson, to me, I think I told you last week that he's am I back?
You're good.
Okay, yeah. Last week I told you Adam Anderson's my guy. I think he's going to get double-digit sacks and be Leonard Floyd-esque. So I like him, and Nolan Smith's going to break out. And then I look, Nakobe Dean's going to be one of the best linebackers in the country, a top 3 inside linebacker, him and Christian Harris. And then Quay Walker's getting some draft buzz and has looked good. And Channing Tindall, your guy. I just think Georgia. And the depth, and I'm just going to say this, I don't think he's going to play much of the game, but Smail Munden, this is going to be bold, but I think by the time he's done at Georgia, there's going to be a year or so where people are going to say he's the best guy on the team. I'm that high on Smell London. I think he'll have that's my ultra bold prediction, not for the Clemson game, but I'm sky high on him. So I think the depth Georgia also kills him there.
Man. All right, Ben. So a couple points. I have to disagree with you. I think Skalski and Spector are really good linebackers. I do. And I like, for Clemson, I like the ability to put those two guys out there. Like you said, they've been around forever, and they've been playing for forever. It's not like a situation with a Rochester where he's not been an impact player, but he's just been around the program. These guys have played. They've played a lot. They've played a lot of meaningful games, and it kind of goes back to, again, where we put Georgia ahead at defensive line because they've got more bodies up there. They've got, Devontae White, Jordan Davis, Trayvon Walker, Jalen Carter. You got Walther. But it goes back to scheme, too. There's more linebackers for Georgia. You've got 4 linebackers, and they rush the passer from the linebacker position, where Clemson does a little bit, but not to the same way. You have Adam Anderson rushing the passer for Georgia. I will say, and so did you went UGA right there, right?
Yeah, I went UGA.
Okay. I didn't write it down. I should have. I'm going UGA, but I promise you, these linebackers, I don't know what's going to happen in the game, right? But Skalski will be in there. Skalski's going to get like 10 tackles, man. I'm telling you right now.
You think he's going to cover Washington?
I'm not. Look, man. Look.
Oh, him and Spector make the plays in coverage?
No.
Whoa. You're calling that?
No. I'm not calling that. I'm calling the dude's a run stuffing middle linebacker. He's gonna put your head in the dirt. He might even have some extracurriculars after the play, as we've seen before. But this guy he likes playing football and he likes hitting people. And this is one of those games where you want those guys in your corner who like playing football and like just hitting people. Skalski's one of them. Spector's one of them. Trent Simpson is a beast. But I'm going UGA. Okay, I'm going UGA for the simple fact that Nakobe Dean is going to be, like you said, one of the top linebackers in the country this year. Extremely smart guy. Had like a 4.3 GPA in high school. Has continued that on at UGA. He's the guy you want in the middle, calling out those defensive coverages for Georgia. I'm going UGA, but I'm telling you, the experience from Skalski and Spector are going to cause problems for Georgia when it comes time to no huddle offenses, Ben. I'm just saying. They're throwing out coverages to their guys. That's where I'm going at with that. Now, we're going to get wrapped up. Martin Arenado says experience matters. Tell him. And I think he's meant to say tell him Paul at the end of it, Ben. He said tell him. But no. And then
I'm gonna have to go in the YouTube comments.
Look. Martin also said Munden is gonna get playing time this year. He's talented, so he agreed with you there. John Boston says too many white boys in that defense. I don't know if I should have repeated that on here, but whatever. That's funny. GATA 404 Dog says he's gonna get tricked by Zeus or Milton in terms of Skalski. I don't know, Mike. I don't know. I'm just saying. I went with UGA. But
if this was Tom Monken wasn't the OC, I might give you Clemson because they can run stuff. If this was James Coley as OC, I'm giving Clemson the linebacker edge. If James Coley's the OC. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, true. Defensive backs, Ben. This one's going to be interesting. Defensive backs. Obviously, we'll run down the list here. Darian Kendrick starting at one of your corners. Your other corners up in the air, Amir Speed, Ringo Kimber. We don't know just yet. Then you've got Chris Smith, Lewis Seen, Latavius Brinney, kind of at your safety positions. And then star position, you've got Tyke Smith with Brinney and Poole kind of getting in there as well. For Clemson, Ben, you've got Andrew Booth. Dear Lord.
Remember, Fred Davis probably isn't playing.
Okay, all right.
Remember, he got into that accident, and he's probably suspended.
Okay.
So I would take him out for this game.
Okay. Andrew Booth, Nolan Turner, graduate, coming back. Landon Zanders. You've got Joseph Charleston, Mario Goodrich, who's played a good bit for them. Malcolm Green. If you're saying Fred Davis, no. Sheridan Jones. Where are you going, Ben? This is interesting.
You know what? This is something I feel like because you always point to one thing. like you said, that little depth or that little thing. I'm going to go Georgia because of Darian Kendrick. That's literally the sole reason I'm going with. Okay, and here's the other thing. One, Clemson's weakness is their safeties last year. It was clear to any Clemson people covering that their safeties was their biggest weakness on their team. So I would take Georgia safeties over Clemson. I think most people would. So I don't think that's a bold take. Now, when it comes to corner, they have Andrew Booth, but everyone else at corner is either inexperienced, and Booth is going to be a good player. He had one or two rough games.
A good.
Oh, he is a great corner.
Oh, okay, thank you.
He's the best corner in the ACC.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
I think he'll be – the thing is, he's not a national – because when a guy like that's only had one full year to start as an underclassman, he's not a national name. He will be by the year's end, I think. He just has to get – because with corners, you have to get a ton of picks to be like Derek Stingley did to get national appraise, and I think he will. I think Booth might be a first-round pick when it's all said and done, at least the second. But I think when you look at that, their other corner spot, you don't know who's going to start. And I don't think they have a guy as talented as Keely Ringo. I think that's very fair. That's a very fair statement. I think you give me Tyke Smith, PFFM is the number 8 player in the country entering the year, and they had him as the best nickel corner in college football, even though I actually do have my concerns about him because of his size and being a man corner in the SEC. It's a big transition for him. But you give me 2 All-Americans transfers, a guy like Keely Ringo, and definitely better safeties. I have to go Georgia. It's a more complete unit for sure.
I think you're right. I do. To touch on Clemson's side, though, Andrew Booth Jr., excuse me, I forgot the junior, is that guy. Like, I would have loved to have seen him and Pickens go one-on-one this game. It would have been, if they could have just put a camera on those two guys throughout the whole game, I would have had it on the second screen somewhere because that matchup would have been great. Saying that, like you said, safety play to me, I'm not high on Clemson safeties. I'm not. They're good players. ACC games, I think they hold their own, But against Georgia and Todd Monken, I don't believe in this defensive back unit as much as I do Georgia's defensive back unit, even though, and here's kind of one caveat to this whole thing, Ben, is Georgia's defensive back unit, while good, while could be great with the 2 transfers and potentially Ringo, 5-star at corner, they haven't all played together. That's one thing. All these guys are new. Yes, you have fall camp to implement things, but they haven't all played together. How will they gel? How will they mesh? That's one thing to look at in this game. And we're talking about in this game because obviously we're breaking it down, Clemson versus UGA. In this game, how will they mesh? Will there be a blown assignment from one of these big-time guys? That's the thing to look at for Georgia at defensive back. But to the folks watching and counting at home, I'm putting UGA down for defensive backs. Specialists we can touch on if you'd like. To be quite honest with you, BT Potter's pretty good for Clemson. Their kicker, Ben, he's pretty good.
They might have a better kicker. Georgia's a better punter. I mean, Carmada got a 70-yard leg. I mean, just knowing that. I mean, he is inconsistent, though. I would have to see if Will Spire could I believe he's the punter.
Yeah.
If he can punt 55 and he's consistent, I might have to give him just because he's consistent. Where I've seen a lot of botched punts from Carmada, but Carmada can punt at like 70. So, he's if he hits, it's he can hit a punt. And Pod's pretty good. I don't know. I'll go draw, I guess, if you can, because I don't know, honestly.
All right, so if we go draw there, I'm cool for that. Here's the big thing, though, Ben, and this is what I wanted to get to. Okay, and then we'll have Dave McMahon call in just a bit, and then we'll wrap the show up after that. It's been a great show, guys. You have one position group for Clemson. I have one position group for Clemson. Okay? And honestly, I feel like we went down through that and really talked it out and hashed it out.
Yeah.
And we broke it down as fair and as even as we could. Why is the line in Vegas still -3 Clemson? We've gone through every position group. Why is the line still – it might be 2.5. Don't kill me if I'm wrong on this, guys. But it opened at -3. Okay, why is it -3 Clemson? Why? Does it come down to coaching? We didn't go on that.
It comes down because they've won titles. They've won 2 titles in the last 5 years, 5 or 6 years. They've won 2 titles, and Georgia hasn't. And
yeah,
then
but the thing
they're
is
higher on DJ.
Yeah, but
that's it for me.
The thing is, though, Ben, Vegas is in it to win money. Yes, recency bias plays a factor into it. It plays a factor into all the betting that they go into because you know if Georgia's playing in the cold in the Midwest in November, they're 2-17, and you're like, that stat doesn't matter. They haven't done that in 20 years. Lo and behold, Georgia loses in the Midwest in a cold game, and they're 2-18 now. And people are like, oh, you should have listened to Vegas. Yeah. They had that stat. Yes, they used all of that, but this year it's a neutral site. That's what I'm asking. Chuck Ward says the line is where it is because Georgia hasn't finished in the biggest games except for versus Oklahoma. I think that's kind of where I'm getting at.
Yeah.
Why is this line where it's at? We've gone down the list here. You have one for Clemson. I have one position for Clemson. And the line is, Clemson ahead right now.
And I think the best case scenario for Clemson is they would have 3 positions. I think the most realistic, if you want to go for whatever reason, I think quarterback, receiver, and D-line are the only 3 you could realistically give to Clemson if you wanted to. Every position else, I think, is clearly Georgia. But like I said, we pick 2 of those 3 to still go Georgia. But I think I understand recency bias. Clemson was in the playoff last year. Georgia wasn't. And Georgia's last impression was they beat Cincinnati, but not by much. I think that's why the line's where it's at. Truthfully.
We've got a call
Look
here.
at the last game they played.
I think I missed it. Give us a call back if you were just calling. Sorry about that. I was trying to get Ben his last second there to chat. Lloyd Dog says national perception. Tristan West says because Clemson has won bigger games and the media is not fans of the Dogs. Both of those could be true, but I don't know if Vegas cares so much, Tristan, about if the media is fan of the Dogs or not because they're in it for money. But yeah, I agree, Lloyd Dog, national perception. But again, does that favor into Vegas? Because Vegas is in it for making money. I don't know if they care about national perception.
Well,
do they care that?
Like, Paul, if you this is where I'm getting at, Paul. I talked to a friend who's a casual bettor. Let's say he gets into college football. There are 3 teams. Sorry, Oklahoma and Georgia. There's 3 teams he's probably going to bet on unless they're playing each other. And in that case, he's probably betting on Bama. Bama, Ohio State, and Clemson. Any casual bettor's probably going to bet over them if they're playing anybody else, especially if the margin's tight. Because, I know a lot of casual bettors who aren't like hardcore fans who really study. This team, that team, and all that, and the odds. So I look at it and say, those 3 teams are going to be favored in every game unless they're playing each other because they have that history of winning championships in recent memory. And, to me, they're national perception. They're the safe bet. And I think that's why they're only up by like 2 or 3 points the spread. So It's a slim one because they're probably the slightly safer bet. That's why I think.
There we go. Hey, Dave, if you're out there, give us a call. We want to talk about some stats and what happened with Georgia athletics this past week since we chatted with you. But, yeah, I don't think we missed anything. Like you said, defensive line could be one where if you're looking at it again and again and again, you could go Clemson. Quarterback, you could definitely go Clemson. You can make a case for that. Wide receivers, tight end, I made a case for Clemson over Georgia just because of the health factor. But, overall – if you're looking at this past Clemson as a UGA fan, I think you pretty much could go down this same list, and we might do it. We might do it again, position breakdown for each game, Ben. Who knows? But I think that you could go down each game on Georgia's schedule and, basically pick Georgia to pick every position battle and win it. So, Ben, did we lose you? Are you there? I think we might have lost Ben. Folks.
I'm still here.
Oh, Ben's still here. Okay, I'll get off the full screen of my face then. Ben,
Paul,
you there?
Paul, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, bud. I can hear you. Oh, you're back. There you go. All right, cool.
Yeah, you're just lagging a bit.
Oh, I was lagging. Okay, that's me. No, I'm just kidding.
No, it just blew up my screen share.
No, you're good. Guys, if you have any questions, put them in the chat. Put them in the chat. We love to know where you're watching from. Put that in the chat as well. We're going to give Dave McMahon just a few minutes to give us a call. And then we're going to go and watch some preseason football. I think this is Dave calling us right now. You're on with Ben and Paul on the UGA Sports Call-In Show. Dave McMahon?
There's the man.
Hello, guys. How are you all doing?
Howdy doody,
Good.
Dave. How are you?
By yourself, Dave.
Good. And I want to get a shout-out to Ben. Last week he did get the correct answer, one of the correct answers right with Terrence Edwards. So I want to get a shout-out,
Yes.
even though it wasn't per se live on the broadcast. He did text me the correct answer, so good job, Ben, on that. So, I have a question later on that you might may or may not know, so we'll get to that a little bit. UGA, obviously the practice is the big news, and all the injuries, but you guys nailed it. You guys did an incredible job breaking down position by position, especially against Clemson, so I'm really happy for that. I did go to a little bit of a Georgia soccer scrimmage the other day. It was nice, a little rainy, but Georgia won 6-0 over Kennesaw State, so that's pretty fun. I went to a Falcons game the other day. I was working that, and I got to see Monty Rice play. I got to see Cameron Nizelek. I never really say that name correctly too well, but
yeah, I hope Dave that Cam can make the team. I know he's been trying, and that man tries on social media, Ben. He's out there tweeting. He's tweeting at teams.
Yeah.
Hey, your punter sucks. I'm a better punter. For real. He's like, you need somebody to punt. I can punt, and then he'll send the Titans a video of him punting, and
Also the sleeper.
Yeah.
One thing, Nick Moore, remember the old long snapper for Georgia? He's now the Ravens long snapper. Watch him play yesterday.
Right.
Taking over for a 10-year starter.
You don't really hear too much smack talk from punters and long snappers, do you?
Right.
But and then like I said, Monty Rice I saw play. I saw Maurice Smith play. Jonathan Atkins was out there. I didn't really get to see too much of him, but it was fun seeing a couple of former dogs out there in person. But speaking of former dogs, I'd say the biggest news by former dogs today was in the world of golf that in Greensboro, North Carolina. Coming into today, Russell Henley was dominating the field, leading after a few rounds, leading after coming into today. And then what's been a big thing that happens over and over and over again lately is Georgia golfers have faltered on Sunday, which is not good. But on the reverse side, a Georgia golfer went from poor to good and took over and got into a six-way playoff and won it all when Kevin Kisner won his fourth ever PGA Tour event, which people say, 4, that's not a lot, not a little, but 4 is still actually tied for the second most PGA Tour wins by a former Georgia golfer. And I do not count Patrick Reed, so I'm not even going to think there. But Bubba Watson is destroying everybody else with 12 PGA Tour wins. Guy named, I don't know if you all know Billy Kratzert. He's a big name. He's on Golf Channel and ESPN's coverage and CBS's coverage a lot. Billy Kratzert has 4. Tim Simpson, another name from the 70s and 80s, has 4. Chip Beck, same era, has 4. Chris and more recent Bulldogs, Chris Kirk has 4. Harris English has 4, and Kevin Kisner now has 4. So those are all the golfers with 4 more PGA Tour victories on that are former dogs. So Bubba, Billy Kratzert, Tim Simpson, Chip Beck, Chris Kirk, Harris English, and now Kevin Kisner. Russell Henley could have joined that group. He has 3. So maybe the next few weeks you get up there. Another thing I want to mention, you guys. I heard someone on the message boards talking all about streaks and winning this and that, and people say, "Oh, well, we've dominated this team over and over again. Why do we want to play them?" There has been six different teams where Georgia has had a 10 or more game winning streak all time against, like a streak of 10 or more wins. One is Mercer. They've won 22 games against Mercer. I have a feeling you would never have guessed Mercer. Can you name the other 5 teams that Georgia's had a 10-game win streak at one time or another during the history of their rivalries?
Vanderbilt.
Clemson.
Wait, you both talked at the same time.
Vanderbilt
is definitely one of them. Vanderbilt was 11.
What about Clemson? They have a big win-loss record against them.
Clemson is right. I was going to see if I was going to get that by you. From 1920 to 1954, they had a 10-game winning streak in that time. So, yeah, Clemson, throughout the history, except for that little stretch in the early '80s and a little stretch in the early to in the 2000s. Georgia's been like dominating left and right in that series and stuff like that. So, yeah, Clemson's another one with 10.
Georgia Tech?
No, Georgia Tech is not one of them. Georgia Tech, the biggest win streak was what was it? Was only 7, and they did it a couple of times.
Are there any other teams that are still in the SEC? So we've got 3 out of the 5 now, right?
South Carolina.
South Carolina is another one. South Carolina was a 10-game winning streak twice. They did it 2 different times with South Carolina.
We have what? 1 left, right?
We have,
I think 2.
We have 2 left.
2.
2 left.
Ooh. Tennessee?
No, I don't think so.
No.
Hopefully soon the way the games have been going lately.
So is there another SEC one on there?
Yeah. You'll know these other 2 teams.
Oh man.
Florida?
No, I don't think so.
Which one?
No.
Florida?
No.
True.
Oh, I know. Kentucky.
Kentucky's definitely one of them. Yeah, Kentucky's one of them. And they have a current like an 11-game streak against them.
That was sitting right in front of us. I don't even know why I didn't take that. There's one more, Dave.
And then another one one more you should know.
Jeez. Anybody in the chat want to help us out? 10-game winning streak or more by Georgia?
Auburn?
Yep. Not Auburn.
No. True. You said Mercer, so that kind of throwing me off that it might be like a mid-major team or something like that.
No, it's a name you know of. And after you have it, you'll have yourself a little hottie toddy.
Ole Miss, really?
Ole Miss from 1977 to '88, they won 12 straight.
Wow, that would not have been on my mind.
Yep. All right, so so looking forward to some more stuff during the week.
Yeah, I kicked your ass in that, Paul.
Yeah, took me to school on that one.
Okay, but I enjoyed trying to trick you guys or trying to get you guys going. But once again, a great show.
Thanks, Dave.
I love it. It's a good, and I'll talk to you all next week.
See you, man.
See you, Dave.
All right, my ear pods are beeping at me that they're about to die. So congrats, Ben, on the trivia there. Dave, as always, appreciate you calling in, giving us some stats for the week. Guys, thanks so much for watching. If you could, before you get off, like this video. Trying to make sure we get the likes on here. Put a comment on it saying go dogs. Whatever you say on the comments. We'd love it. And for Ben Bachmann, I'm Paul Maharry. Thank you again so much for watching. You guys be safe this week. We'll talk to you next Sunday. Hopefully have some more information about Georgia football for you. I'm sure we will. But anyways, for Ben, I'm Paul. Thanks again so much, guys. Have a great rest of your Sunday night, and we'll talk to you next week. Thanks again.